In 1973, a new term would be coined that perplexed people around the world. The term was coined after a bank robbery in Sweden that snowballed into a 6-day standoff involving 4 hostages. The hostages were all released unharmed, and they refused to testify against their captors in court. Additionally, the victims seemingly showed adoration for their captors and hostility against police. So, was this a survival technique, or was it something much more perplexing? This is the story of Stockholm Syndrome.
You are listening to Perplexity.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Perplexity, a mystery podcast. As always, I am your host, Kadra. If you're new, hello and welcome. I tell tales every single week that have perplexed me. So if you love a good mystery that leaves you wanting more, don't worry, you're in the right place. And if you end up enjoying today's episode, I would love if you continue to follow along. If you are a returning listener, hello, my friends. Welcome back. So happy you're here. I have a wild, so perplexing story for you guys today. And I'm so excited that I'm not alone today. Today, I am joined by my wonderful bestie, Alicia, from the Truly Twisted and Uncorked podcasts. Say hello, Alicia, so they can hear your beautiful voice.
Hello. That was quite an intro. I feel so flattered. I am so excited that you chose me for this episode, given my psych background, because Stockholm Syndrome has always fascinated me for this very reason, because it's like you just went through hell, literally. So I am very thankful for you having me on today.
Yes, I'm excited. And I didn't realize you have a psych background. So that's really cool.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you did. Well, we learn something new about each other every day, I guess. Yeah.
Yes.
That is what my degree is in, is psychology and counseling. So
okay, fascinating. Well, yeah, I have always thought that the concept is very interesting, and it's such a normalized term. Like, I feel like I've definitely heard people before say things, and often in a negative connotation, like if somebody is abused and they're like, oh, they have Stockholm Syndrome. Like, so it was really, really interesting to learn about. And my dad actually suggested this topic. So shout out Duncan.
I love that. It's true, though. Like, there's a right way to use it, and in a negative way is not necessarily
right.
Always use it. So I'm glad that you're covering the definition of it as well. So
yeah,
I can't wait.
Yeah, and I'll let people form their own opinions too. But there is basically a huge debate of if Stockholm Syndrome is even real or not. Mm-hmm. So we will talk about that. I do want to issue a trigger warning for this episode. There are some elements of abuse and trauma, so listener discretion there. And all the sources will be down in the show notes. And just a reminder, as always, if you haven't done so yet, please leave a 5-star review wherever you are listening or wherever you're not listening. That's super helpful. And if you want to continue to support the show even further, go check out the Perplexed Society. I've got a special running on over there right now. So that's patreon.com/perplexity mystery podcast. And I just started a new series over there called Mini Mysteries. And they're like bite-sized versions. Thank you. They're like bite-sized versions of the show. So if you like the show and you want even more, you will like that segment. The first episode I released, I think, will be out when this episode drops. And it is about the dancing plague. So go check that out.
I'm so excited to listen to that. Oh my God.
It's crazy.
That story fascinates me.
Yeah, it's a crazy one. So without further ado, let's get into today's episode all about Stockholm Syndrome. So what we are going to do first is get into basically the psychology behind Stockholm Syndrome, how it has been like defined, things like that. And then we'll get into the history of how this became a thing in the first place. Stockholm Syndrome is a psychological response to being held captive or because of abuse. People with Stockholm Syndrome are believed to form a psychological connection with their captor or abuser and begin to sympathize with them. Today, Stockholm Syndrome now includes other types of trauma in which there is a bond between the abuser and the person being abused. And many medical professionals consider the victim's positive feelings towards their abuser as being a psychological response, like basically a coping mechanism. They're trying to survive the trauma that they are experiencing, which I think makes sense. It's a similar condition to trauma bonding. Obviously, that is different because that term's typically used with people who are going through a trauma together. I know that's very different from abuse, but according to the Cleveland Clinic, they said that like the diagnostic criteria, just like the symptoms, are similar to people who have been through like a trauma bond. Which want to clarify that so that nobody thinks that I'm comparing.
All of us have a coworker that we have trauma bonded with for sure.
Yeah. Literally. Me and Alicia have trauma bonded together
over podcasting as an example.
Yes. So, what are the symptoms of Stockholm Syndrome? According to the Cleveland Clinic, it is positive feelings and sympathy towards your abuser or captor, negative feelings towards police or authority figures that try to intervene, or basically anybody who's trying to aid you. You see them as a threat, or depending on it, like if you look at it from a survival tactic, you see it as a disruption, a danger. Like if they realize the gravity of the situation, then that could make your situation worse. What causes Stockholm Syndrome? What's interesting about this is that like not everybody who goes through a trauma or has been held captive develops these types of symptoms. So like scientists and psychologists don't really understand why some people get this quote unquote syndrome and some people don't. But it seems like it is basically a ancestral connection that we have. It's like the learned behavior from ancestors. So like in early civilization, there was always a risk of being captured. And so this is part of our survival and our way to like basically eliminate the chances of being captured or killed by another social group. Bonding with captors has also been proven to increase the chances of survival. I know we've heard true crime stories too before of girls who have escaped like horrific situations because they were nice to their captor and convinced them to let them go.
Yeah, you got to humanize yourself, but that's not necessarily a Stockholm, like that can be like a psychological, that in the back of your head and you can fake it a little bit. So it can go either way.
I feel the exact same way. Yes.
Yeah. Our series, Death Not Yet, that just came out, season 3, Kadra and I were both a part of, and it highlights survival stories. So you'll see like a little sprinkling of kind of all of the above in there. People who still have like that did show symptoms of Stockholm Syndrome and people that didn't.
It's a big problem with this diagnosis and like the whole way that it came about is that it came about in this way where they like weren't even looking at the psyche very much. There wasn't any kind of assessment. The psychologist who diagnosed the first person ever with Stockholm Syndrome hadn't even met them in person. So yeah, we'll talk more about that too, but it's very problematic. So I'm trying to like lay out the context because there are some psychologists who believe it is a thing, but there's a lot of problems with the theory, in my opinion. There's also the concept of collective unconscious, and I've actually been reading a lot about this because I'm studying some of Carl Jung's teachings right now. So I wanted to include this because it reminded me a lot of like the ancestral connections that they were talking about. So psychologist Carl Jung believed there is a deep layer of the unconscious shared by all humans containing universal experiences and symbols called archetypes. Archetypes are these universal symbols and patterns that we apparently inherit from our ancestors that influence our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. So all of that to say, it's like the theory would be that if Stockholm Syndrome is a thing, it seems to be a survival instinct as well as this human connection we all share, this empathy kind of trait. And then that would make sense that like that could be why not everybody experiences it, because not everybody is empathetic.
Ain't that the truth? As a majority true crime podcaster over here, I get that.
Yes, exactly.
And I think Carl Jung studied anthropology for a really long time as well. And that's part of, I believe, what influenced that thought pattern on his side.
Yeah, like the
which
ego
is so fascinating.
Yeah, it is really interesting.
Because you never know until you study other cultures and see like similar behaviors and traits. So we're all just humans at the end of the day.
Yeah,
Trying
exactly.
to survive.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's no, I want to be very clear, there's no right or wrong way to handle being abused, being attacked. You are the victim in that, and it is 100% on the person responsible. I just think it's interesting when the person who is going through that situation has like this level of calmness to them and this, whether it's genuine or not, this level of empathy where it's like, okay, I see you. Something I say a lot is that there's like no such thing as a perfect victim. There's also no such thing as like a perfect criminal. So it's complicated. Human behavior is complicated. So as far as like how the syndrome is diagnosed and treated, there's really not a clear-cut answer. It is similar to the symptoms of like PTSD. So if it is going to be treated, it usually kind of falls into that category, but it's not really something that could be diagnosed because it was never put in the DSM. So that's where we start to have problems in the fact that like, is this even real or not? The first person to have ever been diagnosed with Stockholm Syndrome was diagnosed, as I mentioned earlier, without any diagnostic criteria, any studies, and that is entirely how this syndrome was born. Swedish psychiatrist Nils Bejerot diagnosed 23-year-old Kristen Enmark with Stockholm Syndrome despite ever meeting her. He also publicly claimed that Kristen, who was a hostage in a bank robbery, had become emotionally bonded with the bank robber and her captor. He was making some pretty strong allegations, and he hadn't assessed her or done any proper testing.
And that's wild to me that that's the first diagnosis. Like, how can you gather any evidence without actually talking to somebody or like seeing their behaviors and how they interact in different like situations? Like, that baffles me.
Right.
You can diagnose somebody with something without having all of that.
Well, and how can you diagnose somebody with a completely new thing?
Yeah.
You've never, like, you literally just pulled this out of your ass, you know? It's crazy.
Which is kind of like this conspiracy aspect of whether or not this is a real diagnosis.
Right, exactly. Christopher Rom, a psychiatrist at Sweden's Karolinska Institute and the author of the scientific article Stockholm Syndrome, Psychiatric Diagnosis or Urban Myth, agrees Stockholm Syndrome is, quote, not a psychiatric diagnosis. There are also a lot of other mental health professionals that agree with Rom. So, where did this syndrome come from? Why is it so widely recognized today by the community? And is it real or not? To answer that question, we have to go back to August 23rd, 1973. A 32-year-old man named Jan Erik Olsson walks into a Stockholm bank called, I'm going to butcher this, Sveriges, because there's an S in the front. So I think it's Sveriges, but I don't know. It could be Sveriges Credit Bank.
I mean, the last episode that we did together was your Patreon bonus on the Yule lads.
Oh, yeah.
And that provided a whole other challenge for you. So I think you got this.
Thank you. Yeah, that was rough. I forgot about that. Swedish people don't hate me. I'm sorry. Sveriges Credit Bank is where he was going to do this bank heist. He had currently been serving a 3-year prison sentence for grand larceny. So you might be wondering what he's doing at a bank. And at first I was like, oh, he escaped from prison. That's pretty crazy. No, he was still in prison. In Sweden, they have furlough.
Oh, so they get like day releases.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So he was like out at the shops, chilling, and then was like, you know what? I'm going to go rob a bank before I go back to prison for the night.
I mean, that is the decision that he made.
It is indeed a decision. So this is a temporary unescorted leave of absence for inmates. So nobody was watching him, and he just goes straight into this bank. I don't know how he got the following supplies, but he walked in with a submachine gun, a knife, a transistor radio, explosives, and several long lengths of rope. Jan had gained a bit of a reputation as a, quote, useful idiot after robbing an elderly couple's home. I love this so much. I was like dying laughing when I heard this. So the couple catches him robbing the house, and he frightened the husband so much that he collapsed onto the floor, and he had a heart condition. So his wife starts panicking and yelling at Jan, and she's like, do something! Get his heart medication right now! And Jan did it. He went into the kitchen and got the heart medication.
Man, don't fuck with a lady that is in crisis mode, I tell you.
But then he continued to rob their house after he got him his medicine.
I love like little glimpses of like criminals being people like that, but also like I think there was one that I read about that the person cleaned the house like after they left, and I'm like, you still robbed them. Like, just I don't understand. Here, hold on, let me save your life first. That's not what I came here to do, is kill you.
Jan also decided to wear a disguise so he wouldn't immediately be recognized. So he walked in with a brown wig, fake glasses, and a very fake American accent. Once Jan arrived in the bank lobby, he quickly fired a few rounds at the ceiling, yelling, "The party has just begun." The bank clients dropped to the ground in fear. And what Jan didn't realize at the time is, number one, a silent alarm had already been triggered. 2, this would be the first televised crime in Sweden. 3, the story would spread across the country. And 4, this whole ordeal would go on for the next 6 days. Among the people in this bank was Kristen Enmark, age 23, the first person that would ever be diagnosed with Stockholm Syndrome. She was an employee at the bank. She was a stenographer, and she had also recently broken up with her boyfriend and was only planning to stay at the bank for a couple more weeks. She was about to quit her job and go back to university.
That stresses me out so much when you hear about stuff like this, where like somebody wasn't going to go into work that day, or like when I covered the Cleveland kidnappings, another Stockholm Syndrome discussed case, she was planning on calling in sick the day that she was kidnapped. So it's like, it really screws me up when people are in those situations where it's like they were literally at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Right.
Poor woman. But I mean, she changed history, so I think she had to be there.
She really did. Police would quickly respond to this silent alarm, and this would catch Jan off guard. He thought that he had more time, and so in a panic, he shot an officer in the hand, and it seems like this is when he decided to take hostages, but it's not totally clear if he was prepared to take them in the first place or not.
Or if it was like a panic situation where like, I got to correct this and take control over whatever control I have left. Which is none, sir. Not a lot.
Yeah, exactly. He's a useful idiot, as they said earlier. And we'll find out soon who made that remark. So among the hostages that Jan took was Kristen Enmark and 3 other bank employees. All of them were female except for one named Sven. He let everybody else from the bank leave. He then bound the 4 employees with rope by their wrists and ankles, and he began to make a list of demands to authorities. First, he wanted notorious con artist Clark Olofsson and his cellmate at the prison to be freed from prison and brought to the bank to help him with the robbery. He's phoning a friend, Alicia.
Most egregious demand ever. Like, get your You're already trying to get money, so I guess you can't demand that in your negotiation. It sounds like he was really panicking, truly.
Yeah, I don't think that he knew fully what he was doing. And Clark had a lot of experience robbing banks. So he was like, I'll just bring my guy in.
The expert in bank robbing. Can you please release him from prison just for like 5 minutes? I need some help here.
And Clark was only 26, but he was considered a celebrity in the bank robbing world.
I mean, good for him.
So he did end up showing up because police are trying to meet the demands. And Clark allegedly had no plans in being involved. He allegedly didn't know about any of it. He just shows up and is like, okay, what are we doing? Among his other demands, he wanted the equivalent of $700,000. He wanted 2 guns.
You're already robbing a bank. Why are you demanding money? It's right there. I'm sorry. He made my whole point there moot. Like, just come on, sir.
Maybe because like the police are already there, so he hasn't been able to a swift getaway is not guaranteed. So he's trying to make sure that he gets to leave with guns and a car and money. He wanted a Ford Mustang
to go to prison. A Ford Mustang.
Yeah, he asked for a Ford Mustang.
If we're gonna start demanding cars, let's make them better cars here, people.
Right? And pick a better
Why would you
one.
go for a Ford Mustang? I'm not a car person, but I feel like there's better cars out there.
There definitely are. No offense to people who drive Mustangs. I just think there's better options.
Literally called Fords fucked up, oversized. Something Dodges. Oh, Rinky Dinks is fun. I like that. I'm gonna use that next time.
Rinky Dinks.
Yeah, he thinks that Fords are just crap, basically, is my point. So don't at me, guys. Please at Ford if you have any issues with that.
So police, like I said, released Clark and brought him there, and he was very happy to join, as Jan called it, the party, because he had been in solitary confinement. Obviously, the police are also trying to figure out how to end this, how to get the hostages out safely. So they started to spitball ideas. Alicia, any idea what they suggested they do to get the hostages out safely and arrest Jan?
I feel like they're going to send more people in, which feels like not a good decision.
Okay, let me help you out a little bit. I want you to imagine this is an episode of Looney Tunes.
Oh, okay. Oh, no.
How do you get rid of the bad guys?
Besides shooting at them? Because I picture that, like, just like a pew, pew.
Well, like in the States, it's so, like, gun violence is so normalized, unfortunately, where it's like, just shoot them and then it's all over. But I feel like in Eastern countries, like when I watched Cops, for example, they didn't have guns. They were in this high-speed chase, and they just, like, armed the criminal and was like, you're coming with me, sir. And, like, that's how it... like, this is Sweden.
Sweden is the happiest country, I'm pretty sure, in the world. So it's either Sweden or Switzerland. I can't... Oh, no, it's Finland and then Sweden is what it is. So they're clearly doing something right.
Yeah, they're clearly doing a lot better than we are. So the police suggested that they soap the floors so that the criminals would slip.
They went full Home Alone.
And then they continued to throw out ideas and suggested maybe they send in a swarm of bees.
Who's on this task force? Seriously. You're right. It's like Looney Tunes and fucking Home Alone had a baby.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Why is that your tactic? Like,
luckily they didn't do either of those things, but that was just too hilarious to not include.
Because they're not going to come out safely. They're going to come out bee stung, pissed off, and probably sue you guys.
Well, and that's another thing I want to bring up with the whole Stockholm theory is that a big thing that Kristen and the other hostages kept saying, because they did all make it out safely, is that to them, the police were the biggest threat because it seemed like they didn't know what they were doing. Jan was like very emotionally unstable and very like on edge. And every time the police came, it made it way worse. And when the police weren't there, Clark was like super charming and kept everybody calm. And so they felt safer with their captors than they did with the police. So when 26-year-old Clark arrived, he's super cool, calm, collected, like I said. He, according to the hostages, very quickly took command of the situation, and he was even comforting Kristen and the other hostages, assuring them that everything was going to be all right, nobody was going to get hurt. He demanded that Jan loosen the ropes around their wrists and ankles so that they would be more comfortable, and he even held Kristen's hand and assured her she would not be hurt. So what happened during the next 6 days inside this vault is still the subject of fierce debate among the police, the hostages, and psychologists. But we do know that by day 2 of this heist, the hostages were on a first-name basis with their captors. They also started to fear the police more than their abductors. Police were refusing to allow Jan and Clark to leave the bank unless they left the hostages in the bank unharmed. At one point, the police commissioner was allowed inside to look at the safety of the hostages and assess their health. He noticed quickly that the hostages were very relaxed with the gunmen, but hostile towards him. Authorities also made a major mistake during their investigation. They falsely identified Jan because he's been wearing a disguise this whole time. They thought that he was another bank robber named Kaj Hansen.
Oh, so he dressed up as his hero. That's nice.
After poring over a list of prison escapees, police were convinced that this was Kaj Hansen, a famous bandit. And they tracked down Kaj's 16-year-old brother and brought him to the bank unannounced, thinking that if they sent his brother in, that would end the siege. So they tell Kaj's brother, hey, just go in and talk to him like he's your brother and everything will be good. But, you know, he's in a disguise, so you might not recognize him. So this 16-year-old kid walks in and Jan is like, who is this random person walking into the bank? And he fires 2 rounds at the boy. Luckily does not hit him. But the poor 16-year-old, you know, is so terrified. And that's when he realized, like, okay, this isn't my brother, and fled out of the bank. So I don't know exactly when.
Another Looney Tunes tactic.
Right. I don't know exactly when they identified that it was Jan, but like my whole thing is if you are specifically asking for Clark to come in and he is the cellmate of a guy who is missing, then wouldn't you think that it is Jan? You know what I mean?
You would think. Didn't sound like his disguise was very good to begin with, honestly.
Hey everybody, we are going to take a quick break from the show so that I can tell you a little bit about Comfort. From hoodies to loungewear to high-quality blankets and accessories and even goodies for your pets, Comfort has everything you could need to snuggle and have the best lazy day. As a content creator, I spend so much time inside, arguably too much, and when I'm researching or watching the latest true crime documentary, I need to be comfortable. And that is what I love so much about Comfort. They have so many cute designs and colors. Their sweats and hoodies are the perfect oversized size. They have that drop shoulder that I love, big pockets, of course. I myself just ordered a sweat set, some shorts, and a beanie for my fiance, and I can't wait to get it all in the mail. So if you are ready to shop at a reasonable price, use my ambassador link and go to comfrt.com/Kadra 48805 for 15% off of your order. Again, that is comfrt.com/KAYDRA 48805 for 15% off your order, and that link will also be available down in the show notes. I can't wait to see you in your comfort gear. Come be comfy with me. Now back to the show. The police are making a lot of mistakes, and that's also causing the hostages to lose faith in them and be a little bit more hostile. I mean, they've been in there for 6 days. I also couldn't find anything about like if or how they were getting fed, getting water, being able to go to the bathroom. So like, it's a very high stress situation.
I'm going to guess that they probably had one of those water coolers in the bank that everyone can help themselves to, and that there wasn't a lot else happening in there.
I would hope so. Because the way that they explain it, it's like they were tied up in this vault for like 6 days and it was pitch black in there. So
that's like solitary confinement in itself.
Right. That
but
in
without
and of itself,
food and water being brought to you necessarily.
Right.
Horrific. I can't imagine being trapped anywhere for 6 days.
Yeah, either way, it's horrible. So Kristen is pretty fed up at this point. They've been stuck there for days. The police are not helping. And so she decides there's only one thing left to do. She talked to Clark and he let her call the Swedish Prime Minister, Olof Palme.
Of course, his name is Olaf.
Right? So she starts scolding the prime minister over the phone. And she's like, I'm very disappointed. I think that you're sitting here playing checkers with our lives. I fully trust Clark and the robber. Notice she doesn't call Clark a robber, even though he was like standing there with a gun too. I know that like it wasn't his idea, but just the verbiage is interesting. I am not desperate. They haven't done a thing to us. But Olaf, what I am scared of is that the police will attack us and cause us to die, end quote. During the 42-minute call, Kristen went head-to-head with the prime minister, demanding that he let her and the other hostages leave the bank with Jan and Clark. She thought this was the safest option. At one point, she became so frustrated that she told the prime minister he should temporarily appoint her to be the prime minister for the evening so that she could be in better control of her own destiny. And eventually, she became so frustrated, she hung up on him.
Bad bitch. Like, truly.
Yeah.
The kahunas on that lady.
23. I'm just imagining this like sweet 23-year-old Swedish woman who is bitching out the prime minister. And there's something very satisfying about that for me.
100%. I agree.
Yeah. Go girl. Clark was also calling local papers to let them know that the hostages were being treated well and no one was being harmed. At one point, though, as the hostage negotiation continued and the days passed, Jan became agitated. He wanted to shake up the police. And he threatened to shoot Sven, one of the hostages. Sven would later say about this that he thought it was kind of Jan to consider only shooting him in the leg and not in his body.
Okay, yeah. He's right, though. Like, he could literally just kill him. So both captors are showing examples of, like, human kindness. Like, making sure their wrist restraints are nicely like loosened, making sure that they're comfortable. If I have to shoot you, I guess it'll just be in the leg. Like,
right.
Which is, and the police are planning to release bees in. So it's like, yeah, you do have that tip of scales of like who is showing you the most level of humanity in that situation. So I don't know. I think it's fascinating.
It is fascinating, and it seems like most of the affection was for Clark, who, like, this wasn't his idea. He was brought in by the police. He was given a gun, and he was, like, calm the whole time, charming, and, like, ordered their restraints be loosened, So
because he came in and took control over the situation. He was the phone a friend while Jan was like in panic mode and like, oh, I guess I'm taking hostages now. Oh, I guess I'm making demands. Like, he did not have a handle on the situation. So they're going to look to the person of authority in that situation, which is technically Clark, right?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Would be the head person in that situation. So
exactly.
It's so crazy to me because it's like, I can't blame them, but I also can't see myself feeling that way. But you never know how you're going to feel until you're physically in a situation. So
Yeah, see, I don't know because not nearly to this level, obviously, not trying to compare, but like when I have been in confrontational situations with patients at like hospitals and stuff like that, I always try to be incredibly calm. And that is what we are taught to do to like de-escalate a situation in the hospital. We're supposed to be very calm and like there's certain things we're supposed to do with our body language and stuff like that. So, but again, I don't think there's a right or a wrong way for a victim to react. I can see both sides. Jan also at one point tied a noose around Kristen's neck, and she was really losing hope as the days were going on. But then there was this point where she asked for permission to walk outside of the vault, and they gave her permission, and she remembered how grateful she felt. Like she thought it was very kind that they were letting her walk outside and like stretch her legs and stuff like that. Kristen also had a nightmare one night, and Clark soothed her and gave her a bullet from his gun as a keepsake. I know. Yeah, it's weird. I think he liked her.
I think he did. Yeah, that's literally what I was just going to say. I'm like, I think he is enjoying this a little bit.
Yeah, I think he liked her. He was 26, she's 23, and I mean, he's very charming, and like let me be very clear, by 70s standards, he was cute. But yeah, by today's standards, I would say no. I was listening to another podcast.
What's his last name again? I need to Google him.
Olofsson, Olofsson. And there's also a movie that was made about them, so it's not the celebrity picture.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. Like his like the main photo that comes up with the coiffed hair and the tie. Yeah, I can see that.
He does have a good head of hair on him, yeah.
Right? My husband would kill for that head of hair, no pun intended.
After 6.5 days of being held captive, many of which were spent in the pitch black bank vault, the hostages heard the sound of drilling. Police were making holes in the roof of the bank so that they could fill the room with tear gas. As the hours passed, Jan became increasingly agitated, threatening to kill the hostages if police followed through with this plan. The police would order Jan and Clark to release the hostages, but the hostages refused, saying that they knew the police would shoot them, like shoot Clark and Jan, if the hostages were let out separately, and they insisted that everyone be removed together. Finally, the drilling stopped, and the 3 female captors kissed Jan and Clark goodbye, and Sven shook hands with the men. Then, police sprayed their tear gas, sending everyone to the floor, causing them to become short of breath and vomit. Police then swooped in wearing gas masks and arrested Jan and walked out with Clark because, I mean, he didn't do anything wrong. The hostages shouted throughout this entire process, "Don't hurt them." The hostages were taken out in stretchers and given medical attention, and when Kristen got outside, loud enough for the media to hear, she yelled to Clark, "I'll see you again." So after this whole ordeal was over, Kristen publicly slammed the police for putting her life in danger, and at one point, the police actually investigated Kristen because they thought that she must have had something to do with this robbery based on her reaction. Kristen also lied on the stand, saying that Clark never held a gun during the standoff. And experts were comparing the hostages to behavior of people who have been, quote unquote, shell-shocked, like soldiers from the war. The hostages were also very confused by their behavior, with one asking their psychologist if something was wrong with them because they couldn't understand why they didn't hate their captors. The hostages also refused to testify against both men in court. So ultimately, Jan was given 10 years for the robbery, and eventually he was released, and he actually went on to get married. He never committed another crime. He also apologized for the robbery publicly. Clark didn't go to prison for the crime at all because, again, he was pulled into it. But He did go back to prison many times for other crimes. Like I said, he was a celebrity bank robber.
Yeah.
The former hostages made many jailhouse visits to their former captors as well. So some experts, getting back to Stockholm Syndrome now, some experts have argued Stockholm Syndrome is a constructed concept and that it became a thing in the first place to discredit women, specifically Kristen. Cecilia Ace, a gender studies professor at Stockholm University, said to Euronews in 2023, quote, "Nothing points to the fact that they were troubled psychiatrically or that they had any syndrome as such. Stockholm Syndrome was created from scratch to make allowances for the fact that these women acted rationally in this situation." End quote.
But you see this with Stockholm Syndrome and the behaviors that women in abusive relation or anyone in an abusive relationship experiences is very similar to me. Like both are survival tactics, both are you get like when it comes to situations where somebody's held captive, it's less of a love bombing and then hurting you situation and more of a showing you kindness and then hurting you situation. But they're very similar. And I think that it's interesting that you said it was a way to discredit women because people say that about like falsely about domestic violence victims all the time. It's like, oh, well, you could just leave or like, why don't you? And it's a little more complicated because there's love and there's a relationship mixed into that already. But I feel like a lot of the behavior that is completely normal is explained away because it's like it should be wrong and it must be women's fault because we're just more emotional and more attached and more this and more that. Because everyone but Sven in this situation was female. So was all of it filmed as well? Like, did they have video footage of any of it? Because they were in the bank vault, so there would be, but it was dark.
I
So
don't
you
think
really
so.
don't know what was going on in there.
Yeah,
Like,
that's part of like the mystery is that we don't really know.
Yeah.
Like we have to rely on what the hostages and Clark also went on, the podcast Criminal with Phoebe Judge. Clark was interviewed on that.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it was interesting to hear his point of view. Oh, and I never came back to that. He's the one who called Jan a useful idiot. And then let me go to this really quick. Memory Motel podcast also did some really good coverage and talked to people that were involved. I believe they interviewed Kristen. So this same gender studies professor, Cecilia Ace, also says that the female hostages' statements were interpreted by the media and by police in a very sexualized way. And she's basically arguing that Stockholm Syndrome is just, it's a constructed concept. It's used to explain how hostages behave when authorities and states fail to protect them. Kristen also in 2020 wrote a memoir about her whole experience. And in her book, she said there was no love or physical attraction of any kind from her side for her captors. She felt she was simply fighting to survive. And it's 2020, so she's had all this time to process it.
Probably go through a shit ton of counseling.
Yeah, I hope so. There have been allegations that Kristen had an affair with Clark after the siege. I couldn't find anything to confirm that, though, so I don't want to like drag that and not know. But she maintained that she only got close to Clark during the siege because she saw him as her lifeline. And it was clear to her that the police weren't going to protect her.
It makes sense. He was brought in because he was losing control over the situation. It totally makes sense.
Yeah. And he was also, from everything that I found about him, he was very charming. So, you have this smooth talking guy who comes in and makes everything all right.
With a fantastic head of hair.
Yeah, right? Yeah, come on. I get it.
Key for a swoon moment back then, for sure. But not saying that that's what she was doing. I just mean like any woman would be like, or any man would be like, oh, fuck, yeah, sure. Yeah, charming as hell. Go ahead.
And I guess, yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, in my opinion, Stockholm Syndrome is not a thing. And then the other thing I would say is that whether she was reacting that way because she had any kind of attraction to him or not, who the fuck cares? That's not the point. She reacted how she needed to survive.
Well, look at Lisa McVeigh. She offered to be Bobby Joe Long's girlfriend because she was trying to switch a situation to give herself a little bit more control and to put him at ease. So it's like, yeah, she didn't really want to be his girlfriend. Like, she was just doing what she could to survive. So I think that that's a really good point that you just made. Like, she was literally behaving in a way that maybe that's just how she knew to survive, and that there was nothing more than that. She was faking all of it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly.
who knows? Who knows?
Kristen told a Swedish newspaper in 2015, quote, "It was as if they decided in advance how things were. But I was not in love. I was a 23-year-old woman who survived 6 terrifying days in a bank vault." End quote. So I want to end this episode with a quote from Dr. Alan Wade, a Canadian therapist, and they said about Kristen, quote, "She was a courageous young woman who worked hard to preserve her own safety and the safety of others. She's one of the most famous and one of the most profoundly misunderstood women in psychology." End quote. And I think that sums it up. I feel like women are so often misunderstood in history, and Kristen was another one of those women, but she did not let the media and the police get the best of her. She was able to, I think, get control of the narrative, and now a lot of people are realizing that Stockholm Syndrome was built on this false narrative.
And she was the one that talked to the prime minister, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so she's just,
She's
give
just
everything to Kristen.
She's just a badass. Yeah.
Kristen for president.
Yes.
I'm not even American, guys.
I don't.
And I want her to be my president.
Now I'm wondering if she's still alive, because this was the early 70s and she was 23.
No.
Hold on. Let me Google.
She has to be. My mom was in her 20s. No, my mom was born in the no, she's got to be like 70 something.
Okay, it looks like she is still alive.
Oh, thank goodness.
As of 2024, because there's articles about her. Oh, she's cute. She has like short whitish gray hair and glasses. She also looks like a badass. Well, that, everybody, is the perplexing story of Stockholm Syndrome. And Kristen Inmark, the first person to be diagnosed with it.
I loved that. And she is super cute. I wouldn't fuck with her.
No.
I am by nature an anti-confrontational person, and I would not fuck with her. Sheer photo alone. That and anyone that demands to be the Swedish president and gives that level of zero fucks about what could I was
like trying so hard to keep it like level of like, I think I even said at the beginning, like, I'll let you guys decide. But the more I told the story, I'm just like, come on, like anybody who hears this and still thinks that this is a thing, I'm like, I want to just shake them and be like, you don't know where this came from.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You can't come up with a syndrome without having, like, there's so much research that has to go into that, and like assessment and testing. And the fact that like it just turned into this huge game of telephone, and like it's such a normalized term still in culture. I feel like I've definitely heard that before. And now I know where it came from, and it just frustrates me. So I don't know. I just thought it would be like good for people to hear about. And also it is like lighter hearted in the sense of like everybody got out of there. Kristen seems like she's doing really well and has been able to like shape the narrative for her. It's wild to me. I do think that that could be studied more, just the concept of like how we react in situations of trauma. But I don't think it needs to be labeled as a syndrome.
Yeah, and let's not do like a Stanton prison experiment type thing in order to
No,
do this, people, from a
no,
psychology history point of view. But
of course not.
um, yeah, no, I agree with you because especially in my territory where I've heard that term the most is with especially younger girls who are held captive for multiple months to multiple years. I think that part of it is that it affects your brain chemistry a little bit.
Of course.
It rewires your ability to survive. And that to me is Stockholm syndrome more
Hmm.
than just a 23-year-old woman playing a part in order to get out of a situation or taking control herself in order to get out of a situation. Whereas in Kristen's case, that's kind of how it feels to me.
So you're saying, like, if Stockholm Syndrome is a thing, it is more so that reaction to survive and try to like bond with the captor, not like where it
Hmm.
stemmed from in the first place. Yeah.
I kind of think so. I
I no,
mean,
I agree with that. Yeah.
I think that there can be varying levels of it. And I think that part of Stockholm syndrome is like a fondness towards the person that did that to you. And I think psychologically, after years of somebody abusing you, but then like bringing you a TV for your room so you can watch something while you're held captive for 10 years, like it rewires your like what you should be grateful for to an extent. And yeah, you would show some affection and some thankfulness towards somebody that did that for you. Part of that can be a method of survival, but part of that can be genuine. And I think in most cases, it's like a pattern of repeat, repeat. Like I'm thankful for this, I'm thankful for this, to the point that that's just like a normal thing to you. But it's not normal life. You know what I mean?
Right. I feel like a lot of that's also like manipulation of the abuser too, though. Like,
Exactly,
look at this
which is
nice
why I
thing.
compared it to domestic violence. It's like, oh yeah, I beat the shit out of you earlier this week, but here's a diamond ring because I still love you.
Yeah, look at this nice thing that I did for you.
Or, oh, I'm
Exactly.
gonna take you out for a nice dinner and be nice today. Like, I think that it's absolutely a thing, but I don't think it's a syndrome. I think it's just humans being put into a situation where they're forced to survive and where what their levels of what they should be thankful for are different or what they deem as.
That's what I'm trying to say is like I don't think that like I feel like syndrome has like this negative connotation where it implies that it's like some type of like there's something wrong with this person. I think of like genetic syndromes, for example, where it's just like, yeah, that's not what this is. And a lot of people who have talked about this psychiatrist, whatever his name was, who diagnosed her, they said he was like a very odd guy. Just like the whole situation was weird, and the way that he talked about Kristen in the media was just gross. Well,
I loved it. You did a very good job of covering a very high profile case. I haven't heard this story since I was in university. I hate to admit it, like 8 years ago. So thank you.
you're welcome. Hey, it's been that long for me too.
There you go. I feel
Well,
better now.
good, good. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode today. If you did, I would love if you continue to follow along. If you haven't done so yet on YouTube, you can subscribe and like this video. Drop a comment down below with your theories and what you think about this story. I would love to hear y'all's opinions. You can also leave comments on Spotify and we can have a little chit chat. If you haven't left a 5-star review yet, that would also be amazing. And there are tons of other ways to support the show down in the show notes, including my Patreon link. And that is going to give you early and ad free episodes, so much bonus content, including my new series, Mini Mysteries. So go check all of that out if that interests you. And Alicia, my love, thank you so much for being on again. I love you so
Thank you
much.
for having me and for being patient for me to finish Pilates before jumping on here.
You are so welcome. Hey, priorities.
We're a work-life balance kind of friendship.
And everybody's got to go check out Truly Twisted and Twisted and Uncorked. I've plugged Twisted and Uncorked a couple times on my show, but Alicia, I don't think you've been on here since you started Truly Twisted.
No.
And it is very much like victim focused, shorter episodes, solo storyteller. And Alicia's doing a really, really good job over there. I really think she has something special with that show. So you guys go support my girl. And if you enjoy her show, let her know that you found her from me, because that's always great for us to know where
Please.
you're coming from. Yes.
I appreciate that. And honestly, I don't know what I would do without my podcast girls because it is hard to start a show from scratch all over again. And I also really admire Kadra and the way that she tells stories alone because sometimes it's hard to not have somebody to bounce things off of. And I'm somebody that gets in my head quite a bit. So I appreciate the shout out and I hope you guys enjoy it. But my one of my inspirations is right in front of me. So
Oh,
no, I appreciate that so much that you think that I have something special. So do you. So do you, my girl.
thank you.
And thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You all are amazing. I hope you have a great week. Please stay safe, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye.